Hello, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, I have a question.
It seems to me, young man, that you are addressing the Carl Rogers, one of the world's most respected psychologists. At least, I am only a poorly animated cartoon that is supposed to look like him.
Oh. Well then, can you answer a question for me?
Sure, Sonny. What is it?
Why did the chicken cross the road? I'm just kidding. Can you tell me a little about sexual orientation?
Sexual what shall I call it? I have bad hearing these days. I died in 1987 and I'm 110 years old.
Sexual orientation, an enduring sexual attraction toward members of either one's own sex or the sex.
Right. I think I remember about that. I remember that homosexuals are attracted to their own sex and that heterosexuals are attracted to the other sex. Then there are bisexuals. Bisexuals are attracted to both sexes. We don't see many of them nowadays. Throughout history, all cultures have been predominantly heterosexual, but some, like the Romans, have been accepting of homosexuality.
When do humans become aware of their sexuality?
Stop interrupting me. Humans usually become aware of their sexuality during or after puberty. Now, pull out your notebook. Mr. Sammer's class, that means you. Here are a few statistics about sexual orientation, what shall I call it. First, only 3 to 4% of men and 1 to 2% of women are homosexual. Fewer than 1% of survey respondents are bisexual. According to the APA, homosexuality, in and of itself, is not associated with mental disorders or emotional or social problems. Homosexual individuals, especially during adolescence, struggle with their sexual attractions and are at an increased risk for thinking about and attempting suicide. Most of today's psychologists view sexual orientation as neither willfully chosen nor willfully changed. In men, a high sex drive is associated with increased attraction to women or men. In women, a high sex drive is associated with increased attraction for both men and women. When shown pictures of heterosexual couples, in either erotic or non-erotic contexts, heterosexual men look mostly at the women while heterosexual women look more equally at both the man and the woman.
Are there gay animals?
Now Jim Bob, gay is slightly derogatory. I think homosexual is more appropriate. Scientists have discovered that there are several hundred species in which at least occasional same-sex relations have been observed.
What about brain size? Do homosexuals and heterosexuals have the same brain size?
My, aren't you jumpy today? No, gay men and straight women have brain hemispheres a similar size, whereas in lesbian women and straight men, the right hemisphere is larger. This leads scientists to believe that there might be a genetic influence on sexual orientation. For example, homosexuality has been observed to run in families. In fruit flies, scientists have been able to make genetic manipulations that change the sexual orientation and behavior of flies. Unlike flies, humans are smart and have more genes. So it's likely that multiple genes, possibly interacting with other influences, shape our sexual orientation. Elevated rates of homosexual orientation and identical and fraternal twins suggest that not just shared genetics but also a shared perinatal environment may be a factor. Certain traits differ between straight and homosexual sexes, like the size of the cochlea and the hearing systems. Also, believe it or not, homosexuals and heterosexuals have different fingerprint ridge counts.
Can we play a game? You're a boring old man.
Kids these days, they have the shortest attention spans. Fine, how about I give you a few true or false facts, and you tell me whether they're true or false.
Gee whiz. That sounds great, Mr. Rogers. Wait, do you have a neighborhood? Like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood?
No. Okay, one, most people have an occasional homosexual fantasy. 2. Homosexuality is linked with problems in the child's relationship with parents, such as with a domineering mother and an ineffectual father, or a possessive mother and a hostile father. 3. Men who have older brothers are somewhat more likely to be gay. 4. Homosexuality involves a fear or hatred of people of the other gender, leading individuals to direct their sexual desires toward members of their own sex. 5. Sexual orientation is linked with levels of sex hormones currently in the blood. 6. Gay more than straight men also express interest in occupations that attract many women, such as decorators, florists, and flight attendants. 7. Gay men's spatial abilities resemble those of typical straight women. Awful. 8. As children, many homosexuals were molested, seduced, or otherwise sexually victimized by an adult homosexual. Lastly, 9 homosexual survey participants had 39% greater odds of being non-right-handed.
I think the guy who stayed up way too late making this awful movie has the right answers, and he displayed them when you said them. So I won't bother to give you the right answers.
Lazy butt. To conclude, the consistency of the brain, genetic, and prenatal findings has swung the pendulum toward a biological explanation of sexual orientation.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thanks for listening, Samara and your group of students. Use the sheet you took notes on to help you study for your exam.
And Mr. Samara, give Peter and Ashley a great grade. Aloha, I'm back to my grave.
Goodbye.